Good evening, family. Hope everybody out there is well in social media land. I've been thinking lately, and I want to kind of deviate from what I talk about when it comes to self-development and personal inspiration. And I just want to talk about the planet we live on. And I have a way of just looking at it very strangely. When I was young, I don't know, maybe about 7 or 8 years old, I used to think that the sun was inside of the earth. I did. I really thought the sun was inside of the earth. The reason I thought that way is because the sun was on one side of the planet, and you would see it come up, ascend to its highest point, and then descend downward. And when I saw that, it seems to have made everything hotter, and I kept wondering if it's starting off at the beginning and then it's rising and it's getting so hot and it's getting so cool, that's why everybody must be burning up. Now don't take that, because now that I look at it with science behind me, it's kind of funny now, but that's what I thought. But when I got older and I got in science class, I learned that the sun is not inside of the earth. In fact, the sun is millions and millions of miles away from us. And that was even more bizarre because there was 2 planets in front of us. And the closer you are to the sun, the hotter it gets. So planet Earth was like in that sweet spot. And then I learned that the sun never moves, that the planets revolve around the sun, and that the sun and that the earth rotate on its axis. Now, when I was a kid, I didn't think that way. When I was a kid, here's what I honestly thought. I thought that I could wake up in the morning and I could walk as far as land would take me, and that I can walk outside of the earth. Because I never thought that it was anywhere other than another place you could go. But science taught me that you just can't walk outside of the earth. And I was thinking, well, why is it such that people can walk everywhere and people live everywhere? It's because the earth is a wide expanse. And ladies and gentlemen, I must tell you, when I was a kid, I had the wildest imagination about that. And scientists said that if the sun were to move even a fraction of an inch, that it would throw our world and the solar system that we lived in chaos. And I kept saying, solar system that we live in, chaos? What are you talking about? Ladies and gentlemen, when I got older, I found out that the earth is in space. That there is nothing holding the earth up except for the gravitational pull of a sun that does not move. And we're the 3rd planet away from the sun. So the other 2 planets has to be extremely hot, and then the other 6 that are behind us has to be cooler than where we were, but we were in that sweet spot. Now this began to cause me some sense of confusion and hesitation, because I kept thinking, if the sun cannot move and we are literally in outer space, then what does that make this planet? This planet is a literal floating gravitational object held in place by the sun, and we are spinning in space. There's no place that I can step out of the earth and land on another planet. And we are in space, and the sun is millions of miles away from us. And last night I just got to thinking about what we're doing to the home that we inhabit. Now, we got some amazing guys that are going to take people around the planet once they can get these spaceships. Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, and Elon Musk, they plan on taking us outside of the planet so that we can see the beauty that we have. And at the same time that we're doing all of that, the one thing that's very confusing about all of this is that we're allowing the Amazon to burn up. The earth is the only place that human beings can actually live without any devices. But yet, the Amazon is 20% of our oxygen supply and absorb a lot of the carbon dioxide is burning up. And I'm thinking that if we're living on a planet that has everything that we need, then why aren't we even paying attention to this? And I'm saying that to say this about our planet, that we seem to think, and the scientists, and I don't really argue with scientists, I don't get into discussions about this, but Bill Nye, the science guy, he's a funny guy, but he's a very intelligent young man, and I respect him a lot. He said that we need to get serious about certain things, and whether we get serious or not, it doesn't matter. What science teaches us is that once something goes extinct, naturally, it won't come back. If the Amazon is burning up and it's been around for millions of years, and we're allowing it to burn, and the scientists say that if we don't control it, then we won't be able to revert back. If the Amazon is 20%, and just say if 10% of it burn up, well, you're killing a lot of the Aborigines' homes, right? And then the animals that live in that particular portion that may be destroyed, if they're all eliminated, then you can't create the species anymore. And if you can't create the species anymore, that means that man has to step in and try to create that which he has destroyed. And I don't really know if that's right or wrong or good or bad, but I do know that the consequences that we're bearing down on the future generation is going to really be horrendous, because it's the Amazon that controls the coolness of the planet that's spinning in space due to the power of the sun. And the sun is not to be taken lightly. And I'm going to end by talking about this, is that every year or every 2 or 3 years, or even when we do testings of missiles and we send airplanes and we send planes or spaceships out of space, right? They emit emissions as well. The more you launch something into the air, the more gas rises to the top. So those 3 layers of gases that the Earth naturally have is being bombarded by everything that may be man-made that's creating all of this, and there's no recourse in it, because we have to build a Star Trek world. And the Star Trek world simply means that we have to have spaceships on outer space that makes us travel the galaxy while the interior of the planet that we all live on is being destroyed. Now, I'm no scientist, ladies and gentlemen, I don't profess to be. But what are you going to do with all these people if the Amazon burns up and there's no oxygen supply for everybody? What are we going to do about the Aborigines once they're displaced and they don't no longer have a place to call home? And once we start flying out of space, then what's the next place for us to live without any devices, like without any equipment? Can we go to Mars and literally live there like we live on Earth? I don't think so. But I digress. But every time a spaceship goes out, they're emitting gas, right? And I used to think as a child that once they went out into outer space that they would puncture a hole in the sky. And I thought that it was like a thin layer of a piece of material that protected the Earth. But actually the Earth is protected by 3 layers of gases. And you have to pass through all of those to get into outer space. Where the emissions that we have, they're not escaping into outer space. They're actually hovering over our planet. And every time we launch something into the air, and I know that we drive cars and we're destroying that. I know that they say animals emit methane and all those things. The airplanes are going around, they commit the same thing, and the spaceships, they do the same thing. So everybody is contributing to that 4th layer of gas that we don't seem to want to get rid of. And that's cool too, because we got to build a world that Star Trek has set in motion for us, and that's with all our technology. And here's the thing about space. Once we begin to travel out of space and circle the Earth, I wonder will we see all those satellites that we have in space by all other nations in the world that are allowing me to do this Facebook Live, that allows us to connect with anything else that we have in the world, because technology is instantaneous these days. But what's going to happen with all of those? They say that once those things get destroyed, they become what they call space junk. And that space junk, nobody has developed a plan to just take that space junk out of the way, destroy it, and then just try to make sure that we clean in and around our planet as it rotates and revolves around the sun. We have a lot of things that we have to consider. And when I think about this planet, I don't know if I will ever have the income, ladies and gentlemen, to fly into outer space. But I know that human life is human life no matter where it is on the planet. And animal life is animal life nowhere. And it's like none other than any other place that we've ever been on. And if we're not going to take the time to guard against that, then how can we possibly guard against space junk in space? It's just a little thing that I think about when I think about how we have to live and deal with one another and how beautiful this planet is. And with the Amazon burning the way that it is, and maybe it's too late for man to turn back. Maybe since we have to have the Star Trek world, this is what we have to do. And when I think about the metaphor that I use when I think about the Amazon, there's one movie that comes to mind. And that movie is Avatar by James Cameron. People went to a foreign land and they wanted to get their natural resources. And the Amazon is teeming with natural resources. But you're burning so much that you won't be able to go back. And if we won't be able to go back, that means in the next year or two, we're going to have an extremely hot planet. And I'm hoping that the human family will be able to deal with an extremely hot planet. That means that the water is warming up and the glaciers are melting rapidly. And it doesn't even matter about what's at the bottom of the glaciers like they talk about, but when you see all that ice fall down, right? And it's just like if you fill your cup to the brim with water and you drop a cube of ice in it, it flows over the side. So that water has to go somewhere. And by having to go somewhere, the water may be encroaching upon the seashores that we have, eroding the beaches and the sea line and all those things. And I just think that we need to find a better way to take care of the things that we can only live on. And I hope that I'm old enough one day that I could take a trip out of space. But to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if I had the resources to do that. But I do have the resources to take a flight somewhere and to see the beauty of the planet. And I just hope that while everybody is thinking about everything that it takes to create the Star Trek world, and if a great majority of us can leave and live in outer space, then what can we do to preserve the little space that we have on the planet so that the Creator can see that there's a legitimate spiritual concern about trying to save the very thing are made for human beings to live on. Maybe there can be a recourse that way, but I think there's 7.5 billion people on the planet, and I think there may be 1 million or so that's trying to save it. So the other 7.4 is just going along to get along. And the sun is not sympathetic. Hurricanes are not sympathetic. Windstorms are not sympathetic. Fire is not sympathetic. Snow is not sympathetic. Anything that has to deal with nature is not sympathetic to the destruction that we're causing to the only planet that we live on. I just want to sit down and talk about that because it just fell on my mind this morning to see how careless we are with the only planet that we can live upon. And I stress that if we can't live on this planet when everybody else goes to Mars, what is the common everyday person going to do to ensure that the longevity of their generations and whatever we can salvage of the planet Earth can be or can have enough resources so that their generations can live, so that the animal species that we did not cause to go extinct, that they can repopulate and that the vegetation can be replanted so that everybody here will be able to have decent water and a decent meal. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your time. And if you like this video, please share with others so that they can see what perspective I have. Like I said, this is personally my own perspective. It doesn't belong to anyone else. It's just sometimes when life speaks to you, you just have to respond. And until then, ladies and gentlemen, you all have a great day.